Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this referral marketing for accountants in practice webinar. We're delighted to be joined today by Simon Chaplin. Before I hand over to Simon, there are a few points I would like to make. To minimize disruption, you've all automatically been muted. If you have any questions, please enter them in the questions box, as we will be taking questions throughout the webinar. Following this session, you'll be sent a copy of the presentation slides and a recording of the webinar. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Simon.
Good morning and well afternoon, is it? Or good lunchtime. Anyway, thank you very much, Jack, for introducing me. And thank you also to Kevin, Rani, Upkar and Nicola, who have already joined the Kahoot app. So lunchtime today, I'm going to share the 12 top tips I've got for generating more referrals in your accountancy practice. And I want to make it as interactive as possible. So my ideas are twofold. Firstly, ask lots of questions. So if there's something that I share that you don't understand, please go into the Q&A box, ask the questions, and then Jack will interrupt me and I'll answer those questions as I go along. Secondly, I would like to get your feedback as we work through these, and I'd also like to get a gauge to begin with as to where you are in the referral marketing maze, for want of a better phrase. So if you now go to www.kahoot.it, that's kahoot.it. If you can do it on your phone, so you're watching me on on the PC, or alternatively, brilliant, thank you, Lorraine, or wherever. If you could go to that app, you just type it into your address browser and then enter the code 227777. That's 227777. Enter your name, no other details other than that, but you'll join the Kahoot. And as we go through, you can answer some questions, you can give me some feedback, and I can expand on things if you don't understand it. So just while people do that, everybody's piling in, I want to share with you who I am. Basically, my name's Simon Chaplin. I run an organisation called the Accountants Mastermind, which helps inspire, challenge and support accountants in practice to be the best they want to be. I began that off the back of running a successful accountancy practice called Greenstones. I bought Greenstones back in 2002, took it over completely in 2005. We've won lots of awards and all different sorts of things, and I have a passion for helping other people develop their businesses and develop their practices. So all of the things that I am going to share with you today are things that I have used within my accountancy practice in Peterborough. Some good, some not so good for us, and I'll obviously share those as we go through so you can understand and get an appreciation for what it is that we do. And as I said at the beginning, there are 12 of these ideas. I don't expect you to run away and do all 12 instantly, but if you just take one or two and implement them by close of play on Friday, that would be a fantastic result for me. So we now have 66 people piling in, 68, 69, 70 people piling into the Kahoot. As I move on with this, you will still be able to join. So just to give people another 30 seconds just to get in, you need to be going to kahoot.it and entering the game pin 227777, and then I will start talking to you, and we've got some questions around where you get your referrals from, how many you get, how good you are at doing them, and then ultimately how you feel about asking for referrals, because that's one of the big challenges that I feel as a profession we have. So let's get started. We're now at 12:34. If you're just joining and you've seen the screen move on, if you can still go to the Kahoot. So you can still go to kahoot.it and enter that code 227777, and you will be able to join and answer the questions. So the first question I want to ask, they're the awards that we've won over the years, which you'll see British Accountancy Awards, AVN Awards. We've featured in various books and Investors in People and Gold and all the rest of it. I'm not a massive fan of showing people stuff that we've done. I'd rather talk to you about what stuff that you could do to implement in your practice in order to make a difference for you. And obviously we stand and fall by the content. So first up, quick question. How much of your new business comes from referrals? So on your screen in front of you now, however you've connected to Kahoot, you should see 4 different colors. Is it red, nearly all of it, or over 90%? Is it blue between 90 and 50, yellow between 10 and 50, or green hardly any? So if you check which ones it is that you've got at the moment. Oh, and it's a big, wide gap. I can tell you from Greenstone's perspective that we get 92% of our new business from referrals. So we are very firmly in the red. When we undertake this, or when I undertake this poll with normal practices or accountancy practices, generally speaking, the numbers on the blue and the red are much higher than that. So from a CIMA perspective, it's a much broader spectrum. So I'd be interested to know where you are and what you're doing to generate referrals, or whether or new business, or whether you're just struggling to generate new business at all. But there's a massive opportunity for me and the 25 people that have picked between 10% and the yellows and the greens, in order to help you improve the amount of referrals that you get. So next question. Again, a quick poll. When you receive a referral, where do they come from? Do they come from your current customers, which is red? Do they come from your banks or IFAs, which is blue? Friends and family, which is yellow? Or networking groups, which is green? So if you could select your answers, that would be great, please. And we've got 43%, yeah, from current customers. Banks, IFA, solicitors is always low. It's really interesting. That is how interested they are in getting us to provide referrals to them, but they don't provide referrals back to us. Friends and families is another high one, and networking is another one. So for me, there is no surprises there that the majority of the referrals that you get come from new customers. Next question. How good are you systematically asking for referrals? So do you have systems in place in order to make sure that referrals happen on a consistent basis? So red is yes, you're brilliant, or you're very close to. Blue is no, I am the worst. Yellow is our systems are doing it great, or green is our systems are non-existent. So which bracket do you feel you fall into? And we've got 39, yeah, systems are non-existent. Again, that's a pretty stereotypical thing. And I am the worst of the worst, and that's another one. There's lots of embarrassment that comes from people around asking for business or asking referrals, and very often you just don't get round to it at the end of the conversation. So again, lots of scope for me, and probably is one of the reasons why you're on this webinar. Lots of scope for me in order to help you develop that further. So quick word cloud, just type one word into the box. How do you feel about asking for referrals? So if you had to describe how you feel about asking for referrals, what one word would you use? So just type that word into the box and we'll see what comes up, and we'll see whether you are in good company or not.
Sorry, Simon, what was the pin again?
The pin is at the bottom of the screen, Jack. It's 227777. So if you've just joined us, if you go to kahoot.it and then enter the pin 227777, you will you'll be able to join in the game. We've got a big red one in the middle of the screen, so there's going to be a word that lots of people awkward. It's very awkward asking for referrals. So we've got uncomfortable, embarrassed, and awkward, and that's again something that I hear lots of. Now, as I go through these 12 options, or these 12 things that you can implement, there will be some definitely that make you feel more uncomfortable, more awkward, and more embarrassed. And as I said at the beginning, if you are uncomfortable with any of them, or you feel awkward about them, or embarrassed about any of them, just do not do them. Just do the ones that you're happy with. And maybe over time, you can have the slides, and CIMA will send out, Jack will send out the slides, and there's a little book that you can have as well. Over time, you will be able to build into doing some of the perhaps the more uncomfortable things. So let's move on. Let's give you the first idea. No question at the moment for this one. What I would like you to do is think about concentrating on the goose that lays the golden egg. So we very often talk when we're asking about is we ask everybody. So every single person that you bump into, every customer, every friends and family, every networking meeting that you go to, you should be asking for referrals. Now, very often people find this quite daunting because they feel as though they're asking all and sundry. So my recommendation firstly is to focus on your customers, your referrers that are the best people, that are your best customers, and make sure that you ask them. So if you've got 100 customers, perhaps pick the top 10 and then concentrate on looking after those top 10 and asking those people rather than asking the whole of the 100. Now, the next part of this is when you ask those referrals, you need to be specific about what you're asking for. If I ask you, what is your favorite film? Your brain will go off and it will start trying to work out what's the favorite film. In my case, it's things like, was it Rocky, or was it Terminator? And there's all these different things that it might possibly be. That's a massive subject. Now, that's a bit like you going to one of your customers and saying, out of all of the people that you know in business, who is it that we most likely would be able to help? And as soon as you do that, they go out into a whole of their community, a whole of their network, and again, they will struggle to answer it just the same as I and you struggle to answer the film question. Now, if you narrow it down and become more specific, so say, for example, I could ask you, what is your favorite Disney film of all time? Now, all of a sudden, we've narrowed that down, and you might think of something, Big Hero 6 or whatever it is. And the reason why I picked Disney is because I've got 2 kids, 5 and 7, and they're Disney mad at the moment. But all of a sudden, you narrow it down. And if I was to go further and say, okay, what was your favorite Disney film in the last 2 or 3 years? Then you would narrow it down even further. So when you're asking these golden goose that are going to lay your golden egg, who it is that they know that they might work with you, give them some specifics. So you could say something like, who do you know that's got 3 or more team members? Who do you know that's been got an established business that's over 10 years old, for example? And the more specific that you can be around what type of customer it is that you're looking for, then the much more likely they are to give you an answer to that question. And they'll feel much more comfortable about giving you something because they know that they're providing you with what you actually want, rather than my mate Dave the florist, who you might or might not be interested in. So 2 things in there to start with. Firstly, identify the people that are most likely to refer the people to you, the customers to you that you want to work with. And then when you ask them, give them the specifics of the type of customer that you want from them. And then lastly, if you don't want to ask somebody for a referral, you can ask permission to ask. So let me share how this works. Instead of saying, hello, Dave, Dave's the imaginary client. Hello, Dave, who in your business do you know, or who in your business community do you know that would most like to work with us or most benefit from the services that we provide? The alternative is you say, hello, Dave, at a future meeting, do you mind if we have a conversation about people that you might know that might like to work with us? Now, what you've done is you've not asked him for a referral, but you've asked him for permission to ask him in the future. Now, Dave will go, oh, they're looking for referrals, and he will start thinking about people that he might be able to recommend to you. And when we get to number 12, and I share the most wanted, that's more or less exactly the same process. So ask people, instead of asking for referrals, ask permission to ask for referrals in the first place. So golden goose. Golden gooses. Identify the right people to ask. Give them the specifics of who it is that you want to ask, and then if you dared and ask, or you feel awkward about asking, then ask permission to ask. Don't actually ask. So if we were sat in a conference or in a seminar room, you would now be able to get a feel for whether everybody else in the room thought that was a good idea or not. Now, we can't obviously do that in a webinar or an online meeting because I can only hear myself talking. So what I want to do is give you an opportunity now to say whether you think that's a good idea. Those 3 things are a good idea around the golden goose, and whether you will be implementing them or not. And if it's a good idea and you're going to implement it, then you're going to tick the red box again, and if you're ticking one of the other boxes and lots of people are contradicting what you think, then that's a question for you to ask yourself as to why do other people think that rather than me. So back on your keypads, If you're just joining, the keypad, you go to kahoot.it and the game pin is 227777. So for those that are already there, I'm now going to press next, and then the question will pop up. Would you be happy to implement the golden goose idea? And as I say, that's yes is red, no is blue, yellow is I need more information to decide. And if you need more information, please pop the questions in the chat box, or green is your other, is your get out.
Simon?
Yep.
Someone's asked, can you please frame this in the context of a startup, e.g. with only one or zero customers?
So that specific question around the goose conversation. So there's 79 or 89%, 79 people that have responded think that's a good idea. If you don't have a customer base that you can ask that question of, you need to go out to your strategic partners. So the best thing to do, or the way that you can do that, is to look at people in your community that know people that you want to work with, and then you need to start building relationships with them. So I'm not imagining that you ring a bank manager and say, hello, what customers have you got that you can refer? But you most certainly can start a relationship with bank managers, insurance brokers, business consultants, anybody else that works with businesses like you, stationery companies. They don't have to be professional firms. They can be any company that's got customers that look like the customers that you want, and then start building those relationships. The worst thing that you can do is start that relationship, buy a lunch or a cup of coffee, and then go back and talk to them in 6 months' time. It needs to be something that's regular. So the first Tuesday of the month, even if it's just a 10-15 minute conversation. And the other thing that you need to do, Jack, within that is give them some value. So what can you help them do to look good in front of their customers? So what can you do? So for a bank manager, for example, you might help them do a quick set of cash flow forecasts, or a little bit of profit analysis, for example. So one of the offers you could do is you could go to the bank manager and say, have you got any customers that's struggling, or customers that you think we might be help, or they're not 100% with their accountant? They give you a set of anonymized accounts, so it's just the P&L account, and then you go through and do a little bit of analysis around gross profit margins or debtor days or whatever it is, and you can go back to him with that information, and then he can say, I've had an accountant look anonymously at your numbers, and this is what he said. What is your accountant doing with regards to these numbers? And very often they'll come back and say, I've not even spoken to my accountant, that alone had a conversation with my accountant about those numbers. So it positions you in a place of helping them help their customers, and it builds that relationship, rather than you just turning up, buying somebody a steak and chips and a cup of coffee or whatever it is, a cake, and then leaving it and building no relationship. So if you've got no customers, you need to go out and start talking to the people that have customers like you. As I say, any other questions as we go through, please feel free to ask. Next question, and you don't have to answer this because I'm going to talk about your email footer. Again, it's a really simple thing. You very rarely see it. In your email footer, you just put a referral question. You can see the one that we use at Greenstone. It talks about whether they would like a food hamper or a case of wine, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that shortly as to what we give as a thank you to our customers. So if you've not got that question in your email footer, so your emails are asking continually, then my recommendation is that you add it there. You don't have to give away the food or the wine or anything, just put in there, we want to spread the word, we're asking you to spread the word, can you recommend somebody to us? So if you're not currently using your email footer to ask for referrals, and you could simply add that in, again, can you tick yes for red, or press red for yes, green for other, no for blue, and orange or yellow, is it, for I need more information to decide. A big number again at 72%. So there's 72% of you, 68% of you on the meeting that could quite easily add that as soon as this conversation finishes today, and up the number. You're systematically asking for referrals. It'd be really interesting to know what the 13 are struggling with around that. Perhaps you've got something else on your email footer, or you're not sending emails at all. You're using Slack or any of the other ones. But if there's a question around that, then please feel free to add them in the box. Next up is a conversation around our basis of relationship. Now, this is a bit more difficult to implement. Basically, when we sign up a customer, take on a new customer, we issue a basis of relationship. Now, this basis of relationship, again, you can gladly have a copy of this. If you want a copy, email me on simon@socksupsimon.com. That's simon@socksupsimon.com, and I'll gladly send you a copy of what the Greenstones one looks like. But basically, it says this is what you are responsible for doing, and this is what we are responsible for doing. So we will keep you informed of your tax liabilities, be proactive, etc., etc. We expect you to respond to telephone calls, deliver the information when we ask for it, and all those different sorts of things. Now, within that basis of relationship, we also ask the question, they are responsible to refer contacts to us where you believe that they could benefit from our help. So part of their commitment, and when we sit down with a customer, we go through the new customers, we go through this basis of relationship to make sure they understand our values and the way that we're going to work with them and what we expect from them. And there's an expectation right from the start that they will make a referral to us. It's a really important thing, this one as well, because what you'll find is when people have just chosen you, they have made the decision, they've gone through all of the thinking processes, all of the purchasing decisions, and because they've chosen you, they are much more likely to recommend you to other people. So as soon as somebody appoints you, it's a really good time to be asking for a referral. So creating a basis of relationship and implementing that within your practice. Again, as I say, it's a bit bigger than the emails, but is this something that you could do in order to increase the number of referrals that you get? And again, the same colors as last time. Red is yes, blue is no, yellow is I need more information to decide, and green is other. And if you've just joined the call, I noticed there's more people just piled in. If you go to kahoot.it and then enter 227777, which is the game pin, then you'll be able to answer the questions as we go through. So 53 think that's a good idea. 16 said no, they don't want to do that, and 17% say they need more information to decide. And as I say, if you've got or need more information, then please pop those questions in the chat box. Next idea, again, really simple idea. We have an agenda for lots of our meetings, whether it be a P&C meeting or an accounts meeting or whatever it is. When a customer comes in and sits down and talks to us, then we will have an agenda that sets out the points that we can discuss. And on your screen, you can see what is a bog standard stereotypical agenda that we use when we take on a new customer. And you'll see that at the top left, they have their logos and their customer logo. And then there's a list of things that we are going to ask the person when they come in to talk to us about using us as their accountancy practice. One of those things at the end is anyone else. So again, all that is very simply, is there anybody else that you know that might like to work with us? Is there anybody else with 3 or more employees or 3 or more team members that might like to work with us? So it's just a really simple prompt. As you're working through the agenda, obviously the customer or the potential customer's got it in front of them. So they're expecting that question. You ask the question, is there anybody else? And then the last one is anything else. But is there anybody else that we might like to work for? And it kind of forces you to ask the question because you've put it on the agenda. And if you don't, then the person that you're talking to is more than likely going to say, so what's this point 9? You're not asking that question. So when you're in the moment leading up to the meeting, you're planning for the meeting, you're kind of making the commitment in a safe state and then forcing yourself to do it when you actually get in the meeting. So really simple again. Add an agenda item to make sure that you ask for the referrals. So do you think that is something that you could implement? Would you be happy to implement that in your practice? Again, we got red for yes, We got no is blue, I need more information is yellow, and other is green. So we're at 64. We've got 72% of the people on the meeting think that's a good idea. So that's 3 ideas. We've got golden goose, we've got basis of relationship, and we've got an agenda item where the majority of the people think that that's something that they could implement. And if you do nothing other than those 3, I know that will make a significant difference to the amount of referrals that you receive in your practice. Next idea. Again, a really simple thing to implement in practice, but again, psychologically, some people are challenged in getting over this. So we do a survey. Every year we do a set of accounts for a customer. We send out a survey asking for their opinion on the service that we've delivered. Now, a survey, in my opinion, should form 3 parts. The first part is, have we done a good job? Part 2 is there anything else you need from us? So it's an upserving possibility. And then the second part of part 2 is, do you know anybody else that would like to work with us? So if Greenstones has helped inspire, challenge and support your business this year, please recommend 1 or 3 businesses, etc., that you would most like to work with. And then the last part is to generate referrals for other people that you work with. So IFAs, bank managers, insurance brokers, etc., etc. So I accept that this is a bigger challenge. So firstly, you need to design the survey. If you want a copy of our survey, again, I will gladly send that out to you if you email me. But you need to design the survey, and then you need to create a system to implement it. So this is not something that you're going to go away and do this afternoon, but it's wholeheartedly something that I recommend that you do and undertake as a little mini project. We use Microsoft Forms, which is free, part of the Office 365 suite, and it just goes out as part of the system of sending out the accounts. So if you believe that it would be a good idea to add or start doing a survey or add a referral question to your survey form, again, we could mark red for yes and blue for no. Orange is I need more information to decide, and green for other. Normally this one comes back with a bit more of a challenge because it's a bit more chunky to implement, but we will see where we're at today. So 77%, yeah, that's a high number compared to what I normally see, because lots of people look at it and think, oh, that's a big job. We're not 100% sure whether we want to be asking our customers what they think of our service. They might complain, for example. So that's really interesting from my perspective, that the community is open to implementing that idea. So that's 4 out of 4 so far. Next up is around events. So I don't know whether you run events or whether you're holding webinars at the moment. We're running webinars with Greenstones, and we're doing things like coffee and chat. So we do physical meetings. A really easy way to get people to interact with you and without feeling threatened of a sales process is to get them to come along to an event. Now, I don't know whether CIMA did it today, but when you register for that event, obviously you've shown an interest, and because you've shown an interest in the event, it would be really easy for me to ask you if you know anybody else that you want to bring along, or you know anybody else that I should be inviting. So if you come along to a Greenstones event, when you book that, the email comes out and it says, thank you very much for booking. We can't wait to see you at 12:30 on the 28th of whatever it is. Is there anybody else that you know, anybody else that you would like to bring along, anybody else that you would think would be interested? And again, you'll be surprised at how many people pass that on, because you're obviously delivering value to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to come to the event in the first place. And because you're delivering value to them, as long as they're your target market, your target audience, then they will know other people that need to or should be coming along and hearing that material. So do you think that is a good idea? If you're running events and webinars or online meetings, could you ask the people that are coming along if they want to bring somebody with them? And again, we are red for yes, no for blue, and orange for I need more information, and green for other. So it's a bit more. So 14 and 13 So the other, and I need more information to decide, is possibly because they're not running events, not running webinars at the moment. But again, there's still a big chunk, over half of the people on the meeting think that asking for referrals as part of the event process is a good idea. And if you're not running events, especially at the moment, online events, webinars and meetings and all the rest of it, then get out there and do it. You've got a perfect opportunity to help your customers at the moment learn and understand. And because it's new for lots of people, people are very forgiving if it's not, what should I say, as polished as what it might possibly be. So that's asking people for referrals off the back of events. Next one is keeping score, and I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of this one because it's pretty common sense really, but as you'll see across the top, we've got Greenstones, Buckles, which is a firm of solicitors that we work with, Cowans is an insurance broker, TSG, HSBC, which is obviously a bank that we work with. And what we do is every time we pass a referral, we keep score, and every time we receive a referral from one of them, again, we keep score. So on this little system, you will see that Greenstones has sent 9 referrals to Buckles, but we have only received 1. So the 1 is there and the 9 is there. We've sent 9 to Buckles and we've only received 1 from Buckles. So that's obviously a disparity between what we're giving and what we're getting back. Now, if you keep score, most businesses don't keep score, by the way. So when you introduce this to the solicitors and the banks and all the rest of it, they will be surprised. It will set you apart from everybody else that's in your industry. So once you introduce it, you can then go to Buckles and say, in their scenario, you can say, look, we've sent 9 and you've only sent us 1. We're 8 out of balance. Now, generally speaking, what will happen is that person will go, no, that can't be right. We must have sent you more than that. So what we do is they go away and they say, okay, we'll go and find out whether you have or you haven't, and we'll have another conversation about it in a couple of weeks or whatever. And generally speaking, what happens is they go away and they can't come up with any names that they've sent across to you. So you can then say, well, okay, well, we need to work on it. Is there stuff that we can do in order to help you make recommendations to us? And it opens up the conversation. That's the most important thing. It's not about what you get. It's about opening up the conversation and having a conversation with people to make sure that you're working together. Now, invariably, what happens in this scenario for us is it's easy for us to send stuff to the solicitor, but less easy for them to send stuff back to us. So what they'll do is they'll run an event. So they'll hold a seminar for their customers and we'll come along and we'll talk about inheritance tax or the latest corporation tax or furloughing or whatever it is in order to get our name in front of their customer base. Now, if we didn't keep score, what would generally happen is that it would be fobbed off, it would be dismissed, and we would assume that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we might be a little bit upset or disgruntled that we're not getting them back from the solicitor, but the solicitor would be oblivious to the fact. So if you keep score, keep KPIs, we're all good at keeping KPIs within the accountancy profession, keep the KPIs and then challenge the people that should be sending referrals to you in order to support you in some way. So do you think you could keep score better than you currently are and then use those scores in order to elicit more referrals from the people that you're sending recommendations to? So again, we have yes, no, I need more information, and other.
Simon, a couple of people have asked for your email address again.
Yeah, the email address is simon@socksupsimon.com. So simon@socksupsimon.com. And the socks up Simon is socks as in you put on your feet, up as in up in the sky, and Simon as in my name. So it's simon@socksupsimon.com.
Thank you.
On the that's welcome, Jack. On the sheet, we've got 60% say they can keep score. Blue 22% say no, they can't. So perhaps that's because people need to build those relationships before they can start passing stuff through to them. But clearly that's the closest that we've been to a 50-50 split with regards to whether that could be implemented or not. So as a community, you find that one a little bit more challenging, perhaps challenging the advisors is a little bit more challenging than we're comfortable doing so. So that's fantastic feedback. Thank you very much for that. Next up, we have your referral leaflets. Now, normally if I'm doing this presentation in the office, I'm at home today, I will show you a physical copy of the referral leaflet. Basically, that leaflet goes in client records once they've delivered the records to the practice, any posts that we send out, although that's now diminishing. If we go out networking, we give out the leaflet. They sit in the boardroom and in the meeting rooms in a little tray. Again, a very subtle way of asking if somebody knows anybody that we want to work with. Now, if they fill in that form, what happens is that form goes into a box, into a drawer, and at the end of the quarter, we draw it out, and one of the lucky winners gets a prize, a thank you for recommending us. And we've been using this now for, well, donkey's years, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. In all the years that we've been doing it, I can honestly say we have never had one of those back completed. We've not had one of those back completed. So we must have sent out thousands over the years. So what we have to do is if somebody gives us a referral, we fill that out for them, and then it goes into the bucket. The fact that they're not sending it back doesn't mean that it's not encouraging them to give us more referrals. So it's there in the face in a very gentle, subtle way of asking people for referrals. So that's the front. And if I press that button, you'll see the back. It encourages them to spread the word. Again, if anybody wants a copy of that, the PDF of that, so they can take it away and pinch it, design it, or whatever, then you are more than welcome to do that. Again, it's a bit more of a challenge. To implement it is not something that you're going to go and implement at 3 o'clock this afternoon. It needs some work, it needs a designer, it needs some printing, and given the current economic climate that we're in, the current way that we're working, it's probably less likely, but we'll see what you think of that one. So if we're answering it at the moment, is that red? Yes, you would be happy to implement this idea. No, I wouldn't or couldn't. Yellow, I need more information, and green is for other. And we've got 30s, yeah, so 48%, nearly half are not happy to implement that idea. And it's really interesting as to whether that's to do with the current situation that we find ourselves in that we're all working from home in different places, or whether there's a resistance to do that. So some people have a resistance around giving stuff away, giving wine or charity donations in return for something else. So next time around, I'll probably ask a supplementary question in order to expand on that a little bit more. So brilliant. Thank you very much for that feedback. Next up is an idea around branding the wine. So this is our boardroom table. You can see the leaflet next to the wine on the boardroom table. So when people come into the boardroom or any of the meeting rooms, they see the wine on the table. And I say nearly always, when they first see it the first time round, they'll ask the question, so is that wine for me? And I can legitimately say, yes, that wine is for you, subject to you giving a referral. And we can go through the referral conversation. So it kind of opens up the conversation. They are initiating the conversation as opposed to us. And when I say me, I've got obviously team members that are having these conversations as well. So it opens up the conversation for them to then explain how that customer can get that case of wine. So again, say thank you, share the thank yous, take photographs, share it on social media, demonstrate to the world that you are thanking and honoring any referrals that you get. Now, the reason why I share this thank you in particular is because of this young man. This is a young man called Michael Hem. He owns a practice down in Croydon. And he very often says very nice things about me. Now, with all of these ideas, the reason why I share them is because they are not perfect. I don't confess to be perfect. They can all be developed. Now, what Michael did is he see my bottle of wine. Michael works with me on a one-to-one basis and part of the groups. When Michael see the wine, he went away and he did that. So he got rid of the majestic wine case and he turned it into an MDH wine case. He got it branded. So of course now what's Greenstone's got? Greenstone's has got branded wine bottles. So the reason why I share that is because I'm taking these ideas and developing them, and I would be delighted if in 2 weeks time you come back to me and say, Simon, I took that idea and I thought it was it was okay, but I've done this with it, or I've done that with it, and you've improved it. And then I just think that's fantastic. So any of these ideas, please feel free to take them and improve on them. So next up then, the question is, do you think saying thank you or publicly saying thank you for referrals is an idea that you would be happy to implement? Is that, again, red for yes, or blue for no, green for other, or yellow for I need more information? We got 63%, yes, sorry, 72%, 63 answers saying yes to that. And I kind of slipped in another idea in there. So unless there's photographic evidence, something didn't happen. So take photographs of everything. So if you say thank you to somebody, you send a card to somebody, take a photograph of it, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever social media you're on, and share it, because through social proof, it demonstrates to people that you are getting referrals and thanking people publicly for those referrals. Next up, we've got 2 or 3 more to go before we open it up to the Q&A. I have team members. If you have team members, then you need to be setting them targets about the number of referrals they should be asking for. And if you don't have team members, you should be setting yourself a target. If you create an objective target, a number of referrals that you have to ask for, or you are targeted to ask for, you are much more likely to ask for them. So what you see in front of you is what we call a personal one-page plan. Basically, it's a collection of KPIs that the team members, not every team member, but I have some senior team members that have client bases that they are targeted on for asking for referrals. So as you'll see from this, this person was targeted on asking for 12 referrals a month, so 3 referrals a week, and they were targeted on receiving 4 referrals a month. And the way we measure receiving referrals is if we've actually sent a referral thank you. So 12 referrals asked for, 4 referrals thank you sent, so 4 referrals received. So that's just 1 referral a week. So target your team, set some numbers, set some expectation. And if you haven't got targets for yourself, personal one-page plan for yourself, numbers that you want to achieve, then you definitely should be setting targets for your referrals, the numbers that you ask for. So do you think that's something that you could implement? Would you be happy to implement that either for yourself or for your teams in order to encourage them to ask for more referrals when they are out and about and talking to their customers? Again, 68% on the yeses. I've lost count of how many ideas I've given you now. I think I've got, that's 10. So 9 of which are implementable. They're happy to be implemented. One of which was the physical one, was a bit more of a challenge at the moment. So brilliant. Again, that's a really simple, low cost activity to implement. You could decide your numbers this afternoon if you wanted to, and then sit down with your team over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 days in order to work out what numbers they should be focusing on. Next up, this is a little bit more outrageous for some people. And again, because of the physical nature of it, doesn't work very well at the moment. But within our boardroom, I have a life-size cardboard cutout of me, and as you'll see on that cardboard cutout, it asks the question, who do you know that might like to work with us? We're looking to grow and would love to hear about them. Now, the reason why that cardboard cutout is there in the boardroom is it gets a laugh, generally speaking, when a customer comes in. Majority of them know who I am, so they'll say things like, oh, Simon's everywhere, he's asking questions, can't shut up, etc., etc. So it generates a bit of a conversation. People have the photograph taken with it and things like that. It also helps the more shyer team members. So if there's somebody that really doesn't like asking for referrals and just will not do it, they won't even ask for permission to ask for referrals, the cardboard cutout sits there and does it for them. So you don't have to have something as big as that. It doesn't have to be a life-size cardboard cutout. It could be a little desk one. You can buy them to put on the corner of your desk. and that sort of stuff. So again, it's a bit outrageous for the majority of people. I do know some accountants across the country that have got them for various different things, including referrals, but I would be interested to get your feedback. So is having a life-size cardboard cutout of you in order to help you or your team members ask for referrals is that something that you would be happy to implement? No, at the 72%, yeah, generally speaking, that's the one that gets the most reaction because it feels uncomfortable. It feels embarrassing that there's a life-size cardboard cutout in the room. So again, there's no surprises there for me. For the 16 of you, the 19% of you that think that's a good idea and to implement it, if you want to email me, I'll tell you where. Again, where we get that life-size cardboard cutout is. It will definitely generate you some conversations. It will definitely generate some social media activity for you. So the last one that I am going to share with you for me is potentially the most important. So if you do nothing other than this one, I know it will help you create more referrals. And this is the Greenstone's Most Wanted. Now, it's nothing more complicated than a collection of 10, in this case, logos. Don't want any more than 12 on the sheet. But basically, you pick 10 or 12 businesses that you want to work with or would like to work with. So they are your ideal client. You get a designer to design something up. So this one is based on James Bond. In the past, we have done Most Wanted, as in like a cowboy Wild West thing. We've done, now that's what I like to call music, the old CD compilation albums, anything and everything, basically, in order to make it attractive. You stick the logos onto the sheet. It's basically an A4 sheet and it's laminated. And the team members carry them around and we have them in the office. And then what you do is during the course of the conversation, you deal with the accounts. During the course of the conversation, you say, can I ask your advice? And everybody likes being asked advice, so the customer will always say yes. And then you hand them the sheet, and as you hand them the sheet, they will take the sheet away from you, so it's got them in, so they've got it in your hand. And you say, the business is on that sheet. So you're being really specific now. You're going down to Disney film in the last 2 or 3 years. You're narrowing it down to those 10 customers or 12 customers out of all of the customers on the sheet. Could you help me? Do you know anything about them? We would like to work with them. Could you introduce us? You can ask questions around that. Now, what tends to happen is one of 3 things. Very, very, very occasionally, the person that you're asking will say, yes, I know that person. They are my godfather, my godmother. The son goes to school with my daughter or whatever it is, and I can introduce you. That happened. We've been using this for, well, donkey's years, and it's happened on a handful of occasions. Again, the flip side of that is very, very occasionally you'll get somebody go, no, don't know any of those, and they'll give you it back. Yeah, so the 2 extremes. The vast majority of people will look at it and they'll give you some generic information. So they will say things like, yes, I know Joe at ABC Limited. They are a good business or they're a bad business, or they've upset a lot of people, or they play golf at whatever golf club it is, or they go to BNI. They'll give you some generic information, the majority of time not really very useful, to be honest, but they'll give you something in order to return the advice, to give you advice, which is the question that you've asked. Now, the magic happens when they leave that meeting. So what happens is a week, 2 weeks, 6 months down the line, you'll get a telephone call from that person and they'll say, is ABC Limited on your list? You know that list that you gave me, Simon? Is ABC Limited on that list? And I will say, no, but tell me why you're asking. And then they'll say, well, it's funny you should say that because at the golf club, they was moaning about their accountant not telling them how much tax they'd got to pay, or they could never get hold of them. They never replied to emails. They're not helping me with furlough and a whole host of stuff potentially that they've talked about. Now, what it's done is very subtly and very easy shown your customer or the person that you're talking to. You can use it with bank managers or solicitors or anybody. It's shown them that you're looking for business. without you directly asking for that. And ultimately, they will go away. It will have registered in their mind. And at some point in the future, they will ring you because the majority of people will want to help you. So next problem that lots of accountants have is they look at that and they go, okay, I really need to work on this list and work out these 10 businesses or 12 businesses that I'm going to have on the list. It's not about that. You don't need to do that. That's just an excuse to not generate your most wanted. All you need to do is just pick 10, 12 names. The way we did it the first time we did it, we worked out an ideal customer that we'd got, that they was based on an industrial estate. So Mark drove down to the industrial estate. He looked around and said, right, okay, wrote down the names of the people, got the logos, and then used that on the most wanted. It was nothing more complicated than that. It's not about the people on the sheet. It's about the conversation and opening up the conversation to help people make those referrals, those recommendations to you. So out of all of the things that I've discussed in the last 50 minutes, if you do one thing, do the simple, really quick ones, definitely. But if you're going to do one thing of substance and create a system that you want to work with, then definitely do this one. Another question that very often comes up live when I'm talking to accountants about this is, have I ever had one of the customers named on there ring me up and complain? The simple answer to that is yes. In all the years we've had one. They ended up staying on the sheet, funnily enough, because they rang up and wanted to know why their name was on there and what it was all about. And we said, well, we're being proactive. We want to work with you. It's the way we work. I'm not going to ring you up. We don't email people unless we're invited to. We're not going to ring you up and do direct sales and all that sort of stuff. It's non-interruptive marketing, but we think that we might be able to help support you. We had a very nice conversation, and in the end, he decided to stay where he was. No problem with that whatsoever. So people do occasionally, and that is that one scenario. Again, do we get other accountants ring us up and say, why are you focusing on our customers? No, never had that. Do they focus on our customers? Yes, they do. So we all work within a community. There's more than enough business out there for everybody, but don't let that potential of a customer or somebody on there ringing you up scare you away, because it just does not happen. So finally, the last point is, do you think you could create something like the most wanted in order to share with the people that you're talking to, in order to help them come up with ideas, not necessarily in the moment, but at a point in the future where they might be able to recommend somebody because they've been talking to them in the wherever it is that they've been, BNI or networking club or whatever. So 54% on yes, which gives it about half on the no, and I need more information. Okay, it's a really, again, for me, that's a really interesting one, because it does tend to split people because they feel, again, that awkwardness that they're going out in order to challenge people. So that's my 12 ideas. So there's 12 concepts there, 12 ideas that you can implement within your practice in order to help generate referrals. Now I'm going to open it up. If Jack's around, I'm going to open it up. If anybody's got any questions or anything that they would like clarity around, then I will gladly answer those in the next 8 minutes or so. If anybody wants to, that's the question sheet. If anybody's got any questions, if anybody wants to get in touch with me or ask me around it, then I would be delighted. If there was one of those actions that you were going to take as a result of this conversation, which one would it be? So if you was going to implement the email answer, for example, or the most wanted, or the referral sheet, or the surveys, what would it be? And I apologize, I pressed that a little bit quicker than what I imagined, so I caught myself then by surprise as well as you. So I'm going to be a bit limited on the answers, but 29 of you sneaked in before the close of that survey. So we've got one big email footer is the number one. That's brilliant. So lots of opportunities then for you to do that this afternoon. I'm really pleased that Ask the Top 10 Customers has arrived, and the basis of relationships on there as well, and the survey, and the surveys would probably get a bigger return if we hadn't put an S on the end. So if you do nothing else other than add it to the survey, but that would be great. So just to open it up to questions, and then finally, if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask of me or they want to connect with me, then you can do that at Simon D Chaplin. So it's Simon David Chaplin on LinkedIn. You can join the community on that URL or Facebook message me on the Accountants Mastermind. So, Jack, do we have any questions that anybody's burning to ask?
Someone's asked, have not heard a lot of suggestions regarding LinkedIn. Do you use it actively, and what is the key activity for you on the platform?
Massively from a LinkedIn perspective, I use it a lot. I'm not, despite the fact that I'm doing these webinars and people think that I'm an extrovert, I'm not an extrovert. I'm quite introverted. I hate networking. I hate going out and socializing and doing all that small chatty stuff. So LinkedIn is really good for me. There are a number of ways that I use LinkedIn in the really basic identify my target market and then comment on their posts, share stuff on LinkedIn that I think is relevant to them, and give. Definitely don't sell, definitely don't connect and then send off a sales message. Create a community. I'd love you to join me. As I say, Simon D Chaplin on LinkedIn. You'll see the sort of stuff that I post. Give, and work like that. There's another way that you can use LinkedIn. So if there's somebody that you want to contact, so say for example you want to work with Dave Jones at ABC Limited, obviously you could go on to LinkedIn and connect with Dave Jones in a really sort of an interruptive sort of way. However, if you search for Dave Jones at ABC Limited on LinkedIn, you can also normally, depending on whether they've restricted it or not, but normally you can see a list of people that they are connected to, and you might be connected to them. So a really easy way or a subtle way is to search for Dave Jones, see who you know, who they know, and then you can email Peter or Paul or whoever it is and say, look, I'm really interested in speaking to Dave Jones. Do you think you could introduce us? Or is there a way that we could introduce? Or is there something that you know or a way that we can start that conversation? Another really interesting way of using LinkedIn is to pick a hobby. So I am a beekeeper. I got some bees down the bottom of the garden. So I could search for Peterborough business owners that are beekeepers. On LinkedIn, you just use the hashtags, and I could then connect and say, hello Dave, I see that you keep bees, I keep bees. It'd be really interesting to have a conversation about bees, or taekwondo, or fishing, or crochet, or whatever it is that you do when you're not at work, and go in an informal way in order to create those conversations rather than a connection request and the immediate follow-up, do you want an accountant? So definitely for LinkedIn, there's all sorts of ways that you can use it in order to generate those referrals.
Okay, someone's asked, do you have any tips for accountants who focus on project work?
Again, there's the same things apply to the project work that apply to the compliance and routine work, just the same as it applies to solicitors that have project work. So the solicitors do sale and mergers and wills, so solicitors are one-off stuff, but they will go through the same referral mechanisms, the same referral processes that we do as an accountant. Now, if you can identify through social media what people do that do those projects, then you can potentially identify other businesses that will be running similar projects. So let me give you an example. I speak at accountancy conferences. So I follow people that speak at accountancy conferences. So if somebody posts on Twitter that they've spoken at the CIMA conference last year, then I've got an idea that CIMA are going to need a conference speaker for the following year. So if you think about that project this year, project next year, so I should be getting in touch with CIMA with regard to their project that they've got in the future. So is there a way that you can identify what those projects are, what they're doing, in order to predict that somebody's going to have a need in the future. But other than that, it's the same principles, the same processes. You might pick projects or ideas, or if they're looking for seed capital or something like that, rather than the names of the most wanted. But again, it's similar principles apply for me, Jack.
Okay, just one very quick question, because we've only got 1 minute left. As a new MIP and only starting my business, I have less than 10 customers. Would setting up a dedicated Facebook page for the business be a good start?
Yes is the simple answer to that. It certainly won't do any harm. Better than a Facebook page, and I'm no internet marketer at all, but better than a Facebook page is to join communities, so Facebook groups that have your type of customer in, or your most wanted type of customer in, and then contribute to those Facebook groups. So we have a community called Peterborough Business Community that's got Peterborough business owners in, which are obviously our target market. That's our group. We've created that and we contribute to that group. We did that because there wasn't a Peterborough business community. So if there's one for you in your area, join that business community and then contribute, help advise, become the expert within that community. If there isn't one, create your own and add people into it. Encourage people to come into it. For me, that's a much quicker way of getting results, of getting known, than creating a Facebook page and trying to get people to like it and come to it, because Facebook, they throttle it because they want you to pay for the advertising. So join groups rather than pages.
Great, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got time for. I've just put the survey link in the chat box. If you can just give us your feedback, that'd be great. And the presentation slides and a recording of the webinar will be emailed to you at some point today. So thank you very much, Simon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jack. And just as I say, if anybody's got any questions, email me, simon@stocksupsimon.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I will gladly answer those questions and obviously fill in a survey. That would be brilliant. Thank you very much for having me along today.
Thank you.